Malik Carter had exactly $352 to his name, $352 to feed his little sister, care for his grandmother, and somehow survive another week without losing the fragile thread of hope that held their lives together. He counted the bills carefully, spreading them across the cracked dashboard of their rusted sedan, the only place they could call home. Outside, the city moved like it always did, indifferent and relentless. Cars sped past. People scurried along, sidewalks with coffee cups and briefcases, oblivious to the boy sitting hunched over in a rusted vehicle, his hands shaking from both cold and hunger. Inside the car, the air was thick with the scent of old upholstery and the faint metallic tang of winter frost creeping through broken seals. Aisha, his 8-year-old sister, leaned against the back seat, her small frame curled into a ball. Her stomach growled again, low and hollow. Malik's chest tightened. He'd promised her a warm meal that night, but the money was barely enough for anything more than a single tray from the fast food joint a few blocks away. He could almost hear the laughter of children in school cafeterias, the comfort of warm food in a bright, safe room, a world that felt impossibly far away from the cramped metallic prison of their car. His grandmother, Ruth, was slumped in the passenger seat, her head barely lifting from the pillow Malik had fashioned from a folded coat. Arthritis had taken her hands, and hunger had taken her spirit. Malik brushed back a strand of her silver hair, forcing a smile he didn't feel. "We'll be okay, Gran," he whispered, though the words felt hollow, even as they left his lips. She nodded weakly, the gesture more a habit than a sign of comfort. The eviction had been swift, cruel, and final. A simple notice on the apartment door, followed by locked gates and a handful of threatening notices. Malik had tried to shield Aisha from the truth, to explain that this was temporary, that they'd find a home again. But children have a way of knowing, and her innocent eyes had asked the questions he had no answers for. Where will we sleep tonight? Why is our car so cold? Will we ever eat real food again? Malik clenched his fists, trying to push back the surge of shame that threatened to overwhelm him. School was no refuge either. Kids sneered at his tattered clothes, teachers turned a blind eye to his absences, and job applications never progressed beyond the first glance at his address. No fixed residence. He carried the weight of his family's survival on shoulders, too young for such burdens. This morning, like every morning, he counted their last money one more time. $352. That's what it would take to buy groceries, pay for the rare doctor visit for Ruth, and maybe sneak Aisha a small treat. But as he stared at the bills, he knew the money was fragile. A single emergency could erase it all. Malik's stomach growled in agreement with Aisha's. He forced himself up, tugging on a worn jacket, and stepped into the gray, biting air outside. The city didn't slow down for anyone, and neither could he. He would walk to the fast food restaurant a few blocks away, hoping to stretch their funds just enough for a meal that would warm their bellies. What he didn't yet know was that today, a single act of compassion, an instinctive decision born of empathy rather than calculation, would set the stage for a change none of them could have imagined. Outside the restaurant, a shivering old man sat on the curb, ignored by everyone. Malik's heart clenched. He hadn't eaten in days, yet something in him stirred, a quiet, insistent whisper that there was more to life than survival alone. And, in that moment, Malik made a choice that would ripple far beyond the walls of his rusted sedan. Malik's boots crunched against the icy sidewalk as he approached the fast food restaurant, his mind calculating every dollar, every bite, every possibility. He had enough to buy a small tray for his family, maybe even stretch it for a few days if he was careful. But then he saw him. An elderly man sat huddled on the curb, shoulders shaking violently, a tattered coat barely shielding him from the cold. His hair was white and wild, his face streaked with grime. No one looked at him. No one offered a hand. But Malik couldn't look away. He hesitated, glancing at the bills in his pocket. a burger and fries for his sister and grandmother, versus a stranger who had likely gone days without food. His chest tightened, his stomach ached, but something inside him whispered, "Help him." "Sir," Malik said softly, stepping closer. You look hungry. Can I get you something?" The old man's eyes lifted, clouded but alert, and a faint smile flickered across his face. Malik handed him the tray, nearly emptying his wallet in the process. The man accepted it with trembling hands, murmuring a quiet, "Thank you," that seemed to carry decades of forgotten kindness. Malik noticed for the first time a glint. Beneath the man's torn glove, a ring, elegant and oddly out of place. He didn't yet understand its significance, nor the man's story, that he had once run a successful construction firm, only to be ruined by betrayal and discrimination. Right now, all Malik knew was the warmth in the man's eyes, the way he seemed to see Malik, not just a boy, not just a homeless teenager, but someone capable of compassion, even when he had so little himself. As Malik turned to leave, he felt a flicker of pride mixed with fear. He had just given away nearly all they had. But in the quiet hum of the city, amid the cold and the gray, he felt something else too, a seed of hope. Malik lingered near the curb, glancing back at the old man as he unwrapped the burger and fries. "Mr. Lewis," he had introduced himself quietly, ate slowly, savoring each bite with a kind of reverence that made Malik's own hunger ache all the more. "You're a good boy," the man said softly, breaking the silence. "Most kids your age wouldn't have stopped. Most adults wouldn't have either." Malik shook his head, embarrassed. I had to. My sister, my grandmother, we haven't eaten in days. It's not much, but it's all I have." His voice was low, almost swallowed by the wind whipping through the empty street. Mr. Lewis nodded, as if weighing the boy's words carefully. "I can see it in your eyes," he said. "You carry a lot, Malik. Pride, responsibility, fear, but also something rare. Generosity that isn't afraid of sacrifice." Malik wanted to look away, but curiosity anchored him. How do you know my name?" "Names have a way of reaching those who listen," Mr. Lewis said with a faint smile. His eyes softened as he watched Malik. "Tell me about your family," and so Malik did. He told the story in fragments. The eviction, sleeping in the car, Ruth's arthritis, Aisha's constant hunger. He left out nothing, though he tried to mask his shame with casual words. The cold didn't seem as sharp now, nor his own hunger, as painful, as he spoke to someone who actually listened. "You're carrying the weight of the world on shoulders too young for it," Mr. Lewis said, sliding a small folded note and a coin into Malik's hand. "Remember, sometimes what you give comes back in ways you can't measure." Malik stared at the coin, then at the note, unsure if he should open it. Shame prickled at his chest. He had spent almost every cent on a stranger. What if he had made a mistake? But a strange calm settled over him too, as though the simple act of kindness had already shifted something invisible in the universe. As Malik walked back toward the car, his steps were heavy yet steady. He had only a few dollars left, but his heart was lighter than it had been in weeks. That evening, as Ruth and Aisha nestled in the back seat, Malik clutched the note tightly. He didn't know what was coming next, but for the first time in a long time he believed that kindness, real, selfless, daring kindness, might just be stronger than despair. A week later, Malik was stacking empty trays at the fast food restaurant, his hands numb from the cold outside, when the black SUV pulled up beside their car. The engine's hum sounded almost like a heartbeat, sudden and urgent. Malik froze, his chest tightening. The window rolled down, and there was Mr. Lewis, clean, well-dressed, a stark contrast to the shivering figure from days ago. His eyes were the same, kind and discerning, but now they carried a quiet authority. "Malik," he called gently. "May I talk to you for a moment?" Malik stepped closer, cautious, unsure what to expect. Mr. Lewis smiled, the kind of smile that eased fear and suspicion simultaneously. "I need you to understand something," he said. "I'm not just someone who happens to sit on a curb. I used to run a business, a construction company. I lost everything because of betrayal and prejudice. But I've been volunteering with a local foundation, studying hardship, listening to people like you." Malik's eyes widened, disbelief written across his face. "Your kindness, your willingness to give even when you had nothing, that touched me deeply. It wasn't just about the meal. It was about integrity, heart, and courage. That's why I'm here." Mr. Lewis handed Malik an envelope. Inside was housing arrangements, a promise of food, and a scholarship for him. Malik's grandmother, Ruth, had tears streaming down her face, trembling with relief and disbelief. Aisha hugged her brother fiercely, her hunger finally sated by hope rather than bread. For Malik, it was surreal. The world hadn't just noticed his compassion, it had responded. But the lesson wasn't just for him. The old man's words echoed louder than money or security. Kindness matters. It changes lives, sometimes in ways you can't yet imagine. As the SUV drove away, Malik looked back at the car that had been their prison and smiled faintly. A new chapter had begun, one shaped not by luck alone, but by the power of a selfless act. Months had passed since the black SUV had pulled up beside their rusted sedan. The Carter family now lived in a modest apartment in a quieter part of the city. Sunlight spilled through the windows in the morning, casting warmth over Ruth as she moved more freely, the ache in her joints eased by proper care and meals that didn't vanish by the next morning. Aisha was back in school, her laughter filling rooms that had once echoed only with worry and hunger. Malik had grown too, inside and out. The responsibility that once weighed him down had transformed into determination. He wore clean clothes without shame, attended school with renewed focus, and volunteered at the very fast food restaurant where he had given away his last meal. Each tray he handed to someone in need reminded him of Mr. Lewis's words. Sometimes what you give comes back in ways you can't measure. Yet life wasn't perfect. Malik still faced glances of suspicion, whispers in hallways, and assumptions based solely on the color of his skin or the clothes he wore. But he refused to harden his heart. Each moment of prejudice only reinforced his belief that empathy, not resentment, could change the world. One chilly afternoon, as he stepped out with a bag of sandwiches, he spotted a man sitting on the curb, shivering, his hands clutching a cardboard sign. Malik's heart raced, not with panic, but recognition. He approached, offering the food with the same quiet compassion that had once defined him in the cold streets. The man looked up, startled, then smiled gratefully. It was a simple act, almost invisible in the bustling city. But for Malik, it was everything. Proof that the cycle of kindness could continue, that hope could spread in ways bigger than a single life, bigger than one family's struggle. Now it's your turn. Look around. Someone needs a hand, a smile, or a meal. Even the smallest act of kindness can create a ripple that changes a life. Today, be the reason someone believes in hope.